Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll Masechtas Avodah Zarah daf Samach Daled. We're going to begin on the bottom of Samach Gimel Amud Bey, is about 7 lines from the bottom. Yosef Rav Nachman v'Ula v'Yavimi bar Papi. So they were sitting. V'Yosef Rabbi Chia barami Gabayu. They were sitting nearby. V'Yasvei the Kama Boilhu. And after a lot of sitting was going on, they finally asked the following question. So let's say this person, as we saw in the Mishnah, it's questionable whether or not a person is allowed to work with an akum, especially if they're dealing with yain nesach, as the Mishnah elaborated. What if he's getting paid for every barrel he breaks? So he wants the yain nesach to stay so he can actually break it, but he's also destroying it at the same time. So, what is the din? Mi amrin and kivan doraitsa b'kiyumo. He wants the barrels they should stay so that he can break them and get paid. Aser ol dilma kol miyute tifla shapradami. He's actually diminishing it. He's destroying it. So maybe the whole issue with dealing with or being hired for yain nesach is only if you're like transporting it or doing different things. But here you're destroying it. So exactly why is he being paid to destroy it? It's a good question, but certainly that's the question. So Rav Nachman. So Yishbor v'tavla bracha. Break it and may there be a blessing on your head, as the song goes. So it's nothing wrong with that. Okay. So v'tavla bracha. So lema silent. We can show some support. Says ein oidun imhav kachavim b'kilayim. Rashi says ein chayfrin. You're not allowed to plow or hoe with an akum with regarding forbidden mixtures, as we continue to Samach Daled Amud Aleph. So, of oikrin imo, you could rip it out, as Rashi says, l'hashlich le'ibud, so it'll be destroyed. The rights of a kiyumin shel yikrum alehen ad sheyikruhu. You hope that there is kilayim, but because this way you're getting paid for destroying it. You're still allowed to do that. To remove again this item which you're diminishing. So Savruah Hamani Rabbi Kivi Yermer Hamakayim Bikilayim Loike. It's because this is in accordance to the notion that you can rip it out, is that one who maintains kilayim is already going to be getting malchus. Tisanya Hamanachesh Hamachape Bikilayim Loike. If a person covers the earth over, he does some type of masa b'yadayim, only then is he chayev that he'll get malchus. Rabbi Kiva Omer Afa Makayim. So my time with Rabbi Kiva Samrakra Sadchol Tizra Kilayim. Can't plant these forbidden mixtures. Ainli Ela Zarah planting Makayim B'Nayin Talmud Omer Lo Kilayim V'ilu Lemute Tifla Shari. So it's mashma that to do something which is destroying it is allowed. Lo Hamani Rabbanan He. Rabbanan my oikrin. Why does it mean that he says you rip it out? If you'll kiyuminami shapradam, you can even keep it there. Here we're talking about a situation where he's doing it without pay. You're not allowed to give an akum a gift for free. Fine. So if we look in Rashi, the im zarin acher. Let's say, for example, someone else planted it, and all you did was, let's say, built a fence around it. You didn't actually do anything, but you did it to preserve it, then you get malchus. Fine. So he learned out from the pasuk lo kilayim. Rashi says, shoyei kilayim basada. You can't have kilayim in your field. V'il oikrin shari. If you want to rip it out, it's good. Remuti tiflo, because you're removing it. Afal gav deroitz b'kiyumei. Even though the truth is you want it there, ad sheyikrum, until you rip it out. V'yitol schar, and you get paid for it. So we see it's a raya. So we see rabbanan hu to ichaslahu iroitz l'kayim. Even if you want to keep it there. Avol yain nesach dasal yisroitz b'kiyumei, that it's usher to even keep it around. The Yisrael mitzvah lavato v'nis kachavim. Maybe in that case we make stringency when it comes to yain nesach. So maybe according to the Rabbanan by Kilayim it's aser l'kayim, it's mutter rather l'kayim. But when it comes to yain nesach or more machmer, it's aser. Okay, so we end up saying that maybe it's like the Rabbanan. It says Rashi, v'hai israch l'mishri oikrin. The reason why he had to mention that you're allowed to uproot it, mishum isr matnas chinam, because you're not allowed to do something for free, as we saw in the first parak. Also, that you can't do something for free, but if it's something which is removing this isser, then we're lenient. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda didn't Rabbi Yehuda say that aser litin lehem anaschinam, you can't give us a free gift to an akum of lemuti tifla shaperdami, but to basically destroy the kilayim it's allowed. So Rabbi Kiva nami, Rabbi Kiva hamakayim kilayim loike, that you get malchus just for like building a fence around it. Lemuti tifla shaperdami v'su loimidi, and there's nothing else to say about that. Okay. Weiter. Okay. And when if you look at Tyson, it says Savruah Hamani Rabbi Kiva he perish afil Rabbi Kiva. And it's not excluding the Rabban. Okay. Hadar Yasvi, they were continuing to sit and they asked another question. Demei of his chachavim, the money which is given to him the chachavim. Let's say an akum sells their idols. Now you have money, and it's beyond of a chachavim mahu. What is the din with this money? Says Rashi, what this money is it mutter bahana? So now we know when it comes to a yid that it's toifesis nameh, just like the din of shmita, and therefore it also is aser. So we say the same thing when an akum sells it. That even though they made this transaction selling his Avodah Zarah, the money is mutter. Bahana. Why? Midahanu the asl kamei the Rabba baravua, because people who went to this great rabbi are Malay. They said zilz vinu koma di islchu. Go and sell whatever is by you, all these idols. Vasu is gairu, and then only afterwards convert. Now, why? It must be that there's it's allowed even for right now you're at akum, so you could sell it and it'll be mutter b'hana. Then after you can convert, because once you convert, it's too late. So my time, mishum d'ksavar demei chachamim b'yanav chachamim mutarin, and that's why he advised him to wait to convert until after he did this. Now, v'dilmashani hasam t'givan did daitali yurei vade batla. Maybe it's different over here because since he wanted to convert, it's obvious that these idols are batal. He obviously, the whole point of his conversion is the notion that he does not believe in Avodah Zarah anymore, and therefore certainly he was mavatl, and therefore this case could be different. Question 5a: Im chalifi avodas kachavim shebiyad akum mutarin. So we just say it is mutter. That's the answer. El mahachal. We can learn from here. Yisrael shahaya naishem chachavim. Let's say you have a Yisrael, a Jew who is owed money from an akum. Akum owes him money. And the akum, in order to pay off his loan, he sold his idols and he gave him money for it. Or he sold his yain nesach lehevilo. So mutter. So this money that's given to the yid is mutter. So we see beferish that is mutter. But if he said hamtinli, wait ad she'emchor until I sell this idol, the avilach now give it to you, or I say wait until I sell this yain nesach ve'avilacha aser. So what's saying? What's the difference? So Rav Sheshes Reisha Sefer rather Misham Dahavile Kiroitz Kiyume, because it's an impression that you want him to keep it. So what? Why would it be aser? But none. Let's say you have someone who converted, and he has a bunch of brothers who are still, they still worship idols, and his parents have a bunch of stuff, and they have things in their house, including idols. So you take the idols, and I'll take the money. You take the yain nesach, and Paris. Now, and once it goes into the Rishus Ger, it's aser. So what do we see from here? It says Rashi Alma, the ger writes of Akuma. Obviously, he's happy that there's all these idols because now he's able to get more money which is opposite the value of those things. Shlo mishtaber, he doesn't want them to break. And sheyitol miyadai kenegda mutter. Nonetheless, it's still mutter. So Gemara answers, Amar Rabba bar Ula masnisim chachavim hamischalekes. This is referring to an Avichavim who is dividing, says Rashi, Lafi Shivareha, in accordance to that which is broken. Says Rashi, Shel Zahav or Shel Kesef. She'im Tishaber, if it's broken, Yachalkul Shivarim, then you could divide up the broken pieces. Do Ivchas Lager Bishvirasa. He doesn't care. So it's only mutter by a ger if the idol was gold. That if it broke in half, he wouldn't care since it still has value. So it's mutter since he doesn't want it to stay. He's not roitza b'kiyume, because even if it breaks, it still has value. And therefore it's not necessarily right. So so what does that mean? What yain nesach is yain nesach. So if it gets destroyed, if it gets ruined, it's gonna get destroyed. The becheres hadrini, this special type of earthenware, says Rashi, doesn't care. As we saw before in this Masechta, the wine is already absorbed in it. And when you soak it with water, it comes out. So the warriors, they used to actually have these kalim so that when they would have the ability want to drink something, they would put like water in it, would dilute it, and be very strong. Doesn't he still want it to stay? Shall he yignovu? Shall he avdu? Shouldn't be stolen or lost. Now, Papa, Yerushas Ager Ka'amrit, you can't use that as a rye anyway. Shani Yerushas Ager, Dekil Murabanan, Gezer Shema Yaxel Kalkuloi. When it happens to a ger, we're lenient. Maybe we're normally strict, and this wouldn't be acceptable. But by a ger, because we don't want him to end up going back to being an idol worshiper, if he would cause him a massive financial loss, so therefore we're lenient, dafka in this situation. Okay, let's look at question 5. Question 6. Eza kula b'Yerushas ger. So as we just said, that it's mutter to be machalik peros keneged yain nesach, omos keneged v'eskachavim. Alva b'shiretz b'kiyumai. Even though he wants these idols there in the yain nesach, shal yavad yigna doesn't want to lost or stolen. The reason why we're makel only here is because shema yaksel kalkulai, which certainly we do not want him to do. Okay. As we continue to Samach Daled Amud Beis. Tanya Mihachi, we also learned something similar to this in the Brisa. It says, B'medim Amorim Sheyirshu. That's only because he inherited. That's why we're lenient. Avol Nishtadfu, since he's a partner and it's a case of Rutzel Kiyume, also in that case we are strict. Okay. Who they're continuing to ask questions. Now we know that Jews cannot be mavatal avodah Zarah, so too maybe the ger toishiv, since he doesn't worship idols. So it depends. The palach mavatal, only the worshippers of avodah Zarah can be mavatal. Deloi palach loy mavatal, and when it comes to a ger toishiv, says Rashi, there top Rashi, he's not an idol worshipper. So therefore, because of this, maybe he can't be mavatal. He has the same status as Yid. Odilma, kol davar, mina mavatal. That really he is able to mavatal. I have a high bar mina who is considered to be among them because he's not a Yid. So Amruhu Rav Nachman mistaber the polach mavatal. The Lord polach mavatal. It's logical, and this is going to be question 5b. Him ger toshim mavatal v'eskachavim, and the answer is mistama, that he cannot be mavatal. Okay. Now meisvei Yisrael shematz avodas kachavim b'shuk. You have a Yid that found idols in the marketplace. Until he picks it up, which means he wasn't kainet yet. You can say to an akum, the akum can be mavatal this idol, and then afterwards, and that's it. However, once the Jew actually picks it up and it's in his hands, which means he's kainet, einu oimer. He can't ask an akam to mivatal because it's already his. As we said before, an akam can mivatal his own idols or his friends. Bein oivda, bein she'ein oivda, whether he worships or doesn't. My ovda, my she'ein ovda. What does that mean? They're both idol worshippers. Hainu shaloi v'shel chaver. That's the same thing. Elolav oivda oivda. Someone who worships it is an idol worshipper. My she'enu oivda ger toishev, because a ger toishev he's not Jewish, but he's not like an oivda kachavim because he doesn't worship idols. Nonetheless, maybe as it's saying here, it doesn't make any difference. Being oivda, being she'enu oivda. Shemam ger toishev namim mavatal. So maybe ger toishev could be mavatal. Well, that's not what it means. So they're both talking about Chavim. So why is that mentioned twice? Reisha zevazel lepar, v'zel merkolos. Seifa zelapar v'zel merkolos. Let's look at Rashi. So the Reisha is both of them worship the same type of an idol. Ze yeshlo poar b'shaloi, v'ze yeshlo poar b'shaloi. They both worship Baal Peor. Yashmi'in and Reisha. One can be mavatal the other idol of his friend because it's the same type of worship. The even though we worship different types of things, mavatal et shel chavero. So that's the chiddush. You can even be mavatal an avodah Zarah that you don't even really worship yourself. Meisvei. So again, it doesn't say anything about a ger toishev. Maybe a ger toishev is like a yid that he cannot be mavatal it because just like a yid doesn't worship idols, so to the ger toishev. Meisvei. Ezu ger toishev. What is a ger toishev? Kosh shekibul b'fnei gimel chaverim, that he accepts upon himself among three people. Shlo lavod kachavim. It says clearly that he's not going to worship idols. Never Rameir. Chalam armim no. Kosh shekibul Sheva mitzvahs shekibulei b'nei noyach. You have to be mekabel the Sheva mitzvahs in noyach, which obviously including in that is not to worship Avodah Zarah. Acherim oimrim elu lobo l'chlal ger toishev. These people have not. Someone who did these things is not a ger toishev. El ezer ger toishev ze ger oichel nevelos shekabel alav l'kayim kol mitzvahs amuris b'torah chutz me'isur nevelos. This is basically someone who's on a total different level. He accepts upon himself all mitzvahs, but he just doesn't accept upon himself the Isser of Nevelis. That he still does. But he's Mekayim, as Rashi says, V'shar kol mitzvahs Mekayim. Miyachadim etzel yayin, so when the Ger Toishev has wine next to him, vein mafkidin etzel yayin. But we cannot deposit, so you could have wine with us, and that's it. So miyachlam etzel yayin, ve'ein mafkin etzel yayin. When it comes to ger toishev, you could have wine by him. However, it cannot be there like as deposited. It should not be there, as Rashi says, l'zman meruba for a long time. Ve'afil be'ir shurumi Yisrael. Even if there's a lot of yidden in which they can watch what's going on, and therefore be afraid maybe we'll touch it, still it's not allowed. For a short amount of time, you could give him wine, even if it's a place where there's not so many people. Fine. As Rashi says, Dehai kivan doi polach, since the ger toishev doesn't worship idols, l'naga v'manasach, he's not going to touch, he's not going to do any nesach. However, when it comes to an akum who touches, the yasim alma who comes off the street, beveso leichashinan, we're not concerned of that. The kivan de ein lo hana bekach, there's no hana for him to go there and touch it. Ein manich loiga, he's not going to touch it. Lachalufi bizman muet leikil amechash, and to exchange it with other wines for a short amount of time, we're not worried about. So we're not worried about the ger toishev. We're not worried that someone else is going to come who's an akum to touch it, because there's no benefit for that. The only issue is chalufe, but that's only an issue long term, not short term. And then the Gemara says shmanu kiyenai. His oil has the same din as the wine. As Rashi says, it's mashma, it's osir just like the wine. Shmanu kiyenu sagadatach. Shemen mika havi yain nesach. How could you compare oil to wine? Oil's not yain nesach. Elayeno ki shemanoi. Rather, the wine is like the oil that it's actually mutter. That the wine, his wine is mutter. L'shar kol davar harihu kavacham. For everything else, he has the status of an akum. Says Rashi, when it says it's like wine, it's mutter b'hana. However, kaidim shehuter hashemen b'chilukoi of l'vishtia aser. So it's mutter b'hana, but it's still aser b'shtia. Rav Shimon Oimer, regarding the yeno shel nesach, the wine, yeno yain nesach, the wine of Ger Taishav actually is considered like yain nesach. Yermula mutter b'shtia, in some states mamish even mutter to drink. Ketani miyal sharkol davarav harihu kavichav. Everything else is like an akam. Alav the mavatal v'eskachavim kavichavim. It must become to tell you this interesting din that he has the ability to be mavatal avodas kachavim just like avodas kachavim. So how could you tell me that he cannot be mavatal? And maybe this is what it's coming to tell you. Lo litin rishus ulavatal rishus. It has to do with getting litin rishus, as Rashi shenu yachal litin rishuso al Yisrael. He cannot give permission to a yid el im kin sachem menu me'erev Shabbos, unless he rented out his property already before Shabbos. So this has to do with the dinim of erubi chatzeros. So you need to relinquish. Okay, that's litin rishos or lavato rishos. You need to relinquish your rights in the chatzer. So this will allow everyone else to make an erev. But an akum can't do this. Rather, we need to rent their property before Shabbos. So Ukadasanya. Yisrael Momer Mishamer Shabbosoi B'Shuk Mavato Rishos. All he has to do is be Mavatos Rishos, and that's enough. If he's a Sharm Shabbos, he's Mavato the Rishos, so therefore then everyone else, he's like canceling himself out, and then all of a sudden everyone else can make an Eruv Chatzeros there. However, if it's someone who is Shein Mishamer Shabbos B'Shuk in Mavato Rishos, and therefore, just like an akum, he needs to actually has it rented out from him. And Yisrael knows Rishos Mavato Rishos. When it comes to Yisrael, in order for the Erev Chatzeros to work, all you have to do is Mavato it. Ov'kachavim ad sheyiskor has to rent it out. Ketzad Armulo, you say to him, quote, Rishusi kanoyu lacha, Rishusi muvotelos lacha, Kana ve'in sarach l'zachais. Says Rashi, Alidei Kinyan, you don't actually need to make a Kinyan. But the point is, maybe that's what it means that Ger Taishav has the same din when it comes to like an akum, regarding that you can't just simply mavatos rishus, but rather it has to be rented out for a yidden to be able to use it. To be able to make a Riba Chatzeros. But not necessarily does it mean that he has the Ger Taishav can be mavato of his kachavim, because we're establishing that maybe he can't. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's look at question TA 16. Ha'im ger taishav yachal avatal avodah Zarah umadua. So we end up saying maskana that he can't. Deloy polach lo mavatal. That since he doesn't worship it, so therefore he cannot be mavatal. Question TB 18. Same question, which is great. This is Samach Dal and Mabez. This is TB18. And of course the answer is no. Let's see what I wrote. So, lo. Raka akam shu makir ba'oived avodah Zarah. Vo ger taishev or Yisrael shehu lo makir o oived et avodah Zarah. Adkan.